Hello class, and thank you for joining me today. I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about how to do your lesson plans. So hopefully you have printed off the Level 1 Bluegrass Community and Technical College lesson plan format template. And you've also printed off the Bluegrass Community and Technical College lesson plan grading rubric for Level 1. Okay, so with those documents in front of you, let's begin to talk about that. You can also, in your textbook, your Essentials textbook, if you'll turn to page 108 and 109, you will actually kind of see another kind of format plan that kind of simulates this. But again, as I was beginning to talk to you a little bit in prior lecture, I mentioned the fact that Bluegrass Community and Technical College is actually trying to promote you to begin to learn how to do that K-TIP lesson plan, which is going to be used in your practicum class room to kind of plate you off into your bachelor level program and prepare you for that teacher prep program where they're going to expect you to learn how to use that K-TIP form. So this is the beginning kindergarten level of actually doing a lesson plan, and I began to talk to you a little bit about that in your learning environment lectures 7A. Okay, so with these documents in front of us, let's begin to look at the template. The template is a writable, editable document, which means you open it up and you type right into it and then save it as your very own document, okay? Okay, and the grading rubric actually tells you it's divided in levels of achievement, which is the way I will grade your lesson plans. And I will begin to either give you novice, competent, proficient, or inadequate. So it's very different, okay? What you want to do is you want to be competent, okay? And that's where you're going to get your most points. Okay, so let's look at this. All right, first of all, you're going to place your name. That's very easy in there. You're going to place the date that you did your lesson plan, and you're going to give your lesson plan a title. But remember that I specifically told you the other day that we need to go to our Kentucky Standards of Learning first. Decide which ones of our Kentucky Standards of Learning that we are going to pursue based upon our curriculum plan, okay? A curriculum plan is basically goes from August till May, and in August you're supposed to be doing these things. In September you'll be doing these criteria, blah, 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 all the way through. Okay, so in that should be linked standards of learning. What standards of learning are developmentally appropriate, let's say for a 2-year-old classroom who's in August. So you would look at the beginning stages of a 2-year-old. What should they be learning in their standards, Kentucky Standards of Learning? Okay? And then we need to pick those. We need to pick at least one to be our main one. And then we can have 2 others that we call sub-standards of learning. In other words, if you're doing a music project, the main standard could be creative expressions in there, but you could also be doing an art project. So with, fine motor skills or something like that. So they overlap just a little bit. But what I see a lot of times is teachers will list like 7. That's inappropriate. We want to list one main one, and then we want to have 2 sub standards of learning. And remember, I'm going to call them SOLs, but they are the Kentucky Early Childhood Standards of Learning. That's what we're talking about. Okay? Okay, so once we pick our Kentucky Standards of Learning. Then we can go back and actually name our lesson plan. So we give our title of our lesson plan a name, and we decide which age, which we've already decided based on the Kentucky Standard of Learning, what age are we going to be working with, and what is the concept. Now when it says concept, and then later on you'll see domain of learning, those two are pretty much very closely related. It could be that you're working on the concept of a pinching skill, but your domain of learning could actually be fine motor skills, okay? So you have to line those up. Okay, so we've picked our standard of learning. We know our domain. We understand that the domain and the concept connect with each other. Now we need to know what kind of prior knowledge do they have. Well, it could be that we want to say, okay, well, the kids can, commando crawl. What are we going to do to teach them to crawl on all fours? How can we teach that? So your prior knowledge is they can commando crawl for an infant, or they can pinch because they can pop bubbles. So now maybe we want to take that pinching skill to picking up a peg and putting it in a hole for a toddler. Or maybe we want to practice taking big coins this size and sticking them into a piggy bank. And we want to count as we do that to 3. Maybe they know how to count to 2 and they don't know the number 3. Or maybe they know how to count 1, 2, 3 objects, but they don't know how to, they skip 4, number 4, and they say 5. So those are prior knowledges that we need to know. A lot of times you will see expert teachers, they will actually assess prior to find out whether or not a child knows what's happening, and then teach the lesson and assess again. That's what you're going to be doing in level 2 and level 3 in your lesson plans. But at this stage you don't have to. You just try to figure out what prior knowledge they do have. Okay, and then for your lesson, how are you going to do your lesson, and what materials do you need? And in your template you've got 6 slots for your materials. If you need to add another one, that's fine. You can add to this template. And then your procedure, step by step. Step by step is very concise and precise. Why am I getting you to do this? Because remember what I said about activities? First of all, you have to be ready. Second of all, you have to be organized. In order for this not to turn into a chaotic mess, ready, organized. Ready, set, go. Organization is your key. Being prepared is your key. So step by step, you're going to list your procedures. The next one is that you've got children in your classroom who are non-typically developing. They may be behind just a little bit. And then you have those kids that are just blowing smoke. I mean, they are way ahead. They're called advanced students. And then you just have the normal, typically developing kids, okay? So your lesson plan is set for those kids who are just typically developing. They're right there, blah, blah, blah. Okay, but now we have to put in an adaptation, or what we call a modification, for those non-typically developing kids, the ones that are just a little bit behind and need some extra attention. Okay, and we call those non-typical developing children. okay? It means they're not in that typical mold. Okay, so we may have to, in that pinching skill, we may have to maybe hold their hand and show them how to do that. We may have to actually have an extra device, or maybe they need to sit in a special type of chair. They need assistance. Whatever type of assistance that they need, you're going to fill in that space. Okay, now for the advanced kids, maybe they know how to take a hold of the peg, put it in the hole, and this is just boring to them, okay? So how do we add content or knowledge to this lesson plan for those kids so that they don't become bored? And remember, when children are bored, you will see lots of behavior problems. When children are overstimulated, you see lots of behavior problems. Okay? So your advanced student may pick up the peg and may put it in a hole, but let's add patterns to that. Let's say I want that student to pick up a green peg, and then a blue peg, and then a green peg, and a blue peg. So we're teaching them a two-part pattern. So that's an advanced skill for that particular child, and we're adding on to their learning, and we're showing them patterns. Okay, so that's a modification to your lesson plan. It's an adaptation. Those words are simultaneously the same. Okay? Next is we're going to come back and we're going to make an assessment. How are we going to assess after we've taught our lesson if our children know how to do that? Well, first of all, there's several different things that you can do, but on an elementary and kindergarten level 1 lesson plan, what I would want to see is a list of your children. Say there's 5 or 6 toddlers in your classroom, or 12 preschoolers, or 10 preschoolers, whichever ratio that you're doing by your star rating. You will list those kids and then have a checklist. Can they do this? Yes. No. And you would just check it off. Check it off before for prior knowledge, and check it off after for after knowledge. And you may want to test them 2 or 3 different times throughout the week to see if in fact they are learning what you're saying. This is a type of assessment that's going to give you feedback as to whether or not you were successful as a teacher in teaching your lesson plan. The next part is reflective notes. Reflective notes is a time for you as a teacher to reflect on, did I do a good job? Did I prepare my lesson plan really well? Did I miss something in my materials and I forgot to write that down so you could put that in your reflective notes? Notice that I divided that into strengths and weaknesses. What were the strengths? Did the kids like it? Were they enthusiastic about it? Did I spend too much time on this section instead of moving to this section? That may be a weakness. A weakness may be that only 4 out of 12 kids actually learned something when you presented this. Is that to say you're a bad teacher? Well, it just means that maybe your lesson plan wasn't as prepared and precise as it needed to be, and that you didn't look at the type of children that you had in your classroom. Now, your CDA book really talks about, scheduling and all those different things that we've just talked about in those prior lectures. But one of the things that I think it fails to mention is that you have different types of learners in your classroom, and you're going to learn this through when you go into like IEC 130, which is child development, or you even what a curriculum is in IEC 180 at BCTC. You're going to learn those different things. But when you actually get into a 200 level class called Creative Expressions, you're going to begin to look at Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligence, which is going to explode in teaching you that there are different kinds of learners in your class. And based upon whether they like music or whether they like art or whether they're literary, they learn from books and visuals, or they're math oriented, or however they're oriented. Those children have a different way of learning about them, and so you need to look at your kids in your classroom. Are they kinesthetic learners? Are they more quieter learners? Whatever type of learners they are, that's the way you need to present your material. And it could be that when your children are not grabbing hold of a concept in that classroom, it could be that you just do not know what kind of learner those children are. And so you have to go at them through that, okay? I hope you enjoy learning how to do a lesson plan on the Level 1 system here at BCTC. And I want to thank you as the Early Childhood Coordinator for taking time out to listen and learn how to do lesson plans, because quality is the key. Have a great day.